Hello, this is a conversation with Ted Fauster. It was a great conversation we had about his journey dealing with multiple sclerosis. It's a pretty heavy topic, but he's a very positive guy. He brings a great amount of knowledge to the table, and he's sharing with you how to deal with fear, which I think we're all dealing with these days. So it's a very useful podcast. Please enjoy it. Here's a quick mention of our sponsors. My pharmacy, my wife's pharmacy, the pharmacy online here in Pasewalk, Germany, where we live. You can reach it at apotheka-pasewalk.de. I always have to say that in German for some reason. It's just part of it. And then my sister-in-law's company is Ambrosia Lounge. There she's doing vitamin C infusions. And then my own company, which is signalist.com. We're doing digital marketing for you all. So yeah, if you enjoy this thing, just go on YouTube or on any of the platforms and give a little like or follow. I appreciate that. And like I said, enjoy the conversation. So today I have Ted Fauster. Now that you said that, I was like,
no, you're gonna start
like Fauster. Ted Fauster. I'm going to do a little intro. Being diagnosed with an incurable chronic illness empowered him completely to overhaul his life. From the first time, the center of his universe was not writing. Something much more profound had taken its place. As they say, I've been to the edge, and there I stood and looked down. Through meditation and the healing power of community, Ted was transformed. He now combines his talents as a writer, a personal branding strategist, and a salesperson to change people's lives. Through community and education, he now works in groups, one-on-one, and through his online courses to help people break free from fear, anxiety, and limiting beliefs. I'll have in the show notes links to all of those things. You on YouTube, I've watched a little bit of your YouTube today.
Wonderful.
It's cool. It's just looking straight into the camera and just saying what's on your mind. You have a point every time. It's refreshing.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to cover. I have a lot of questions, but I kind of just want to let you start where you want to start, and then we'll just see where it happens, So I'm looking forward to having a conversation.
I'm game for anything, whatever you want to do. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. I'm in the early stages of still developing my company, so I'm going through different modes of advertising and reach out and community reach, things like that. So it's great to be on a podcast like this too, because I know I can reach so many more people. So I appreciate that. But I started, I guess I should probably start with my diagnosis, if that's okay. Is that a good place to start?
Of course. Yeah.
This is it's going to be a little strange, but I'm a writer. I've always been a writer. But if you're a writer, or if you know someone who's a writer, you know that we're all broke. We have no money. I've been broke my entire life. One of those things, but I take jobs to support my writing. It's kind of like a writing habit. Yeah. So interestingly enough, I actually, 2017, I just finished writing a book. It's my third fantasy novel. And I'd been writing that book for about a year. So I wanted to get back in the world, get working again, just kind of, get back to civilization, I guess.
So you're like, when you're writing these books, you're just gone, right? You're just.
Oh man, it's like, yeah, you can't even talk. My wife hates it. She does, because it's like 12 hours a day. That's all I'm doing. But when I came out, I wanted to do something a little bit more athletic. So my wife at the time, she was working at a ballroom dance studio, and they actually needed a new dance instructor. And I went. I'm like, I'm going to go talk to the guys. I want to talk to the owner, and he said, "Can you dance?" I said, "No." And he said, "Well, can you sell?" And I said, "Yep." He's like, "Okay, you're hired." So they taught me how to dance, and I taught ballroom dancing. Right. And I had a blast, had a really good time doing it. But about a year after getting into it, I kind of just started noticing really strange things. And the first thing that happened was I'd start tripping over my own feet. I'd literally start like walking, and then my right foot would hit my left ankle, and I finally fell. Yeah. And my boss pulled me aside and he said, "We're going to send you to a chiropractor, just to get an adjustment, see what's going on. Maybe you have a pinched nerve." Yeah. And long story short, I went through all this rigmarole, wound up getting MRIs and all kinds of scans. And I had primary progressive multiple sclerosis.
That's just,
So
yeah.
it was terrifying, man, because I mean, where did that come from, you know? And the thing was, I was actually grateful because all the symptoms were leading up to ALS.
Okay.
And ALS is a horrific disease. My uncle actually died from ALS, and
Yeah.
it took him in like 6 months. That's how fast.
Oh, that
and
was fast.
I was terrified, you know?
Yeah.
But having multiple sclerosis was actually like, I was like, oh, thank God, which sounds crazy, but you know, I knew that it's a little messed up, but in my head, the first thing I thought was, okay, I'm not going to die next week, you know?
Well, I mean,
and it's going to, and they told me it's going to take up to 10 years off your life. And I'm 52 now. And so, I mean, that kind of stuck in my head, and it scared the shit out of me. I didn't know what to do. For the first time in my life, I had no idea what to do. And I couldn't work. I couldn't move. I was in a lot of pain. They were putting me on these pain meds that they were making me all foggy in my head and everything. It was just a mess for a whole year. I did nothing. I mean, I literally did nothing. I sat in a recliner, watched TV, and I got up and I went to bed at night.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of get used to the pain kind of thing, you know? And it took a while. It took a while to realize that, like now, I don't feel like the pain's here. And if I concentrate on it, it sucks. But I've kind of made peace with it. And but at the beginning, you don't know how bad it's going to be, you know?
Yeah.
And so you just have to wait and see. And I finally got to a point where I'm like, okay, that's as bad as that's going to get. And that's as bad as that's going to get, you know, different sensations I would feel, like these electrifying jolts I get up and down my spine.
Yeah.
And I finally just, made peace with it. So.
Yeah, it's that I just was kind of researching a little bit about it beforehand, and the different types of multiple sclerosis. And you said you had primary progressive, so this PPMS.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's the rarest form. There's less than, really, the numbers now, I think it's less than 12% of everyone who's diagnosed with MS gets, you know, I got the bonus MS that's with you all the time, never goes away.
The bonus. So, exactly, because the other three, the relapsing, the secondary, and progressive, they have progressive relapsing. I'm sorry, that's what it was called. It's like they have like these waves, and then there's these phases of nothing. Or like not necessarily phases of nothing, but phases of like, no, it doesn't get worse.
Well, that's where I'm really careful when I talk about it, because I never want to be like, my MS is worse than your MS kind of crap, you know. But people, I mean, everybody, sometimes, actually many times, people that have relapsing remitting get it. I mean, they lose their vision. They completely lose the ability to speak, you know, things like that. I don't have that. Yeah. So I'm actually really grateful. But they go through periods where sometimes it's months, sometimes it's even years, where they're almost normal.
Yeah.
And but I don't get that. Mine's always like straight down. But
just coming to terms with that, and then just the way that you turned it around into a positive, and to talk about it and be out and open about it, that just amazes me.
Well, thanks, man. You know what it really was is I always believed I was this tough guy. You know, the jobs I did to support my writing up until the dance studio, I was in construction. You know, I'd go out and work on all these crazy. I worked in the hydraulic fracturing fields in Colorado, just, you know, a chemical plant, driving a forklift. It was stuff that I intentionally, purposely took jobs that wouldn't crowd my head with a lot of detail. It didn't require my attention, so that when I got home at night, I could write. Oh. And it didn't have to, you know, it was like easy jobs. They were physically demanding, but.
So then you were like mentally good to go when you got home, and physically like you're good. Oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
It's the only thing I could think of, because I knew that I was addicted to writing. I'm always going to be a writer, and I was kind of tired of being broke. You know, it's funny. People think I have very, you know, well-established writer friends who people think are rich, and believe me, they're not. They're all broke. There's very few writers that, you know, you got J.K. Rowling in that level, and then there's this giant gulf in between there and reality, and that's where we all kind of sit. But yeah, that's when I was like, I'm tough. I got pipes dropped on my head. I got kicked by a bull in the ribs when I was a kid. You know, it's like I didn't worry. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was like, you know, the universe said, well, try this. And I didn't have the strength anymore. My left hand is pretty much totally numb. So when I type, I have to type with my right hand and one finger of my left hand, just stupid stuff. I can't walk. I have to use crutches or sometimes wheelchair, and all that. Now that I talk about it, it doesn't sound like that much because you have to kind of make peace with it. But early on, I was pissed.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really pissed. I was like, and you go through all those things of, the 5 phases of, it's you feel like anger, you feel resentment, and then you get depressed, all that. And until I finally got to a spot where I'm like, okay, I feel like this isn't going to kill me, and I want to do something now. And it really took about a year. And the thing is, when I kept seeing that I was in this hole and I had to get my way out, and believing in how strong of a person I've always been, my kind of personality. And it's not like I'm bragging. It's just that I was never really concerned or worried. Nothing really bothered me.
Yeah.
And to see how bad and how low I got, that's when I started reaching out and I started to see other people that were even lower,
Yeah.
And the biggest thing too was a lot of it wasn't just MS. I just started to encounter people who were afraid,
Yeah.
That's where it got interesting. That's kind of where Truly Fearless Life came from.
What was the last part? It's truly what? I didn't hear
Truly Fearless Life. That's the company that I started. Yeah.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. So that's the Truly Fearless Life. And I think about like one of the conversations we had with John, right? One of the first, I think it was the first one we had on
the
this
first pod match.
The first match on pod match. It's like a dating app for podcasters or something.
It is. Huh?
He talked about fear, and then just in that conversation with him, I realized how that's still in my life, and then I kind of want to learn. I try to add these things into my life too. Like, well, where is fear blocking me, or how is it so deeply ingrained in us? And for you, I think the way that I see it is it's like you were able to, you saw that you said something like the first time when you realized that you were consumed by fear most of your adult life. So that's a pretty that's a pretty big statement. Like to realize that I've been consumed by fear my whole life up to this point.
It really, it's something you're not really aware of, but I believe it comes from your parents. And I had fantastic parents. My father's no longer here. My mother's still kicking. She's doing just fine, but
still kicking.
But they just, I think it was the era that they grew up in too. They went through so much crap when they were younger, that they had to do certain things to make sure that, they're preventing catastrophes. And there were 3 of us kids. So, little things like my dad never invested in stocks. He thought people were crazy if they invested in stocks. He would forget gambling, anything like that. If you leave the house, you got to wear a winter jacket, all this stuff. And I just thought it was how you raised a kid.
Yeah.
And there was nothing wrong with it. But I realized later on in life, and really not until I got sick did it start to really set in that they were just trying to protect me. But what they had done was make me afraid of everything. And I think what I did was kind of subconsciously correct myself when I was probably in my 20s by being the tough guy. I can take anything, and I really wasn't tough though. I just thought I was tough. And then when something came and actually tested me, getting sick.
Yeah. But that's that's a huge test though, right? That's a different, that's like kind of like, but how many people do really? I think the test for for us right now with the whole, I don't really want to go into COVID and all that. Like I'm sure a million people have talked about it, and I'm sure listeners don't even want to hear it anymore. but it's a test for fear. Let's just put it that it really tested everyone's. You can see the people that are afraid, and you can see the people that are like either pretending to be the tough guy because they're not. They just don't care. Or there's just the real people that are like the reality of it is what it is. You do what you can do. All you do is you do what you can do. But I just I see around me on a daily basis people that are consumed by fear. And
it's something that doesn't go away. You have to kind of actively. It's almost like having a personality flaw, and it's not that when I initially tell people that I work with that you can actually adjust yourself and correct this, that one of the first reactions is, well, I'm not trying to be afraid. No, you're not.
Yeah.
But I meditation helped me a lot because it helped me. And I did a lot of research on fear and meditation in the brain, how we learn, how to remember things. And the biggest pull I got out of it was kind of my aha moment when I realized that I'm actually three things. I'm my brain, I'm my body, and I'm my mind. And the mind is that's me. That's where I live. My body and my brain are stupid. They're idiots.
Yeah.
The brain is just trying to keep itself alive by using the body to move around, collect stuff, shovel it in your mouth. So anything that and they're lazy. They want to be complacent and fat and not have to worry about anything. So anything that could disrupt that, the brain sends a signal to the mind, hey, you should be afraid of that. And I think we just, when we were cavemen, that probably was a great instinct to have, but it's not the best thing to go through life with now,
Yeah. That brings me to this thing. Do you know anything about the Hedonic Treadmill?
I have no idea what that is. What is that?
Okay. Can you bring it up, Eric? Because that's just something that that I've just been meditating a little bit. And I heard from this. I have Sam Harris's app, and it has this one part about stoicism. And so there's one guy that's like a kid talks about stoics and what they are and what they do. So can you show them our screen?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the hedonic treadmill, also known as hedonic adaptation, is the observed tendency of humans to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or life changes. According to this theory, as a person makes more money, expectations and desires rise in tandem, which results in no permanent gain in happiness. But the thing that when I was listening to this, can you go back so I can? The thing that I can't see him, that's why. Okay. The thing that interests me about that is that I had like this picture when I was listening to this, and I think the guy actually said it. You have a person like a caveman, and they go outside of their cave, and they're just happy with life, like they're just satisfied.
Right.
And that's the one that gets eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, right? Like he's just chilling out there, like watching the sunset.
It's like a flaw to be happy.
Yeah. It's a flaw to be satisfied with what you have. And it turns into this whole thing where it's like, well, where does that come from? Why do I have to like have the next car or do the next thing? And then you hear things like your story, or like I remember as a kid growing up, I lived in LA, and we heard of a shark bite incident where the guy lost half his body or whatever, and he was like 6 months later just like the happiest dude and just so grateful to be alive, and you just think like how does that happen, and why can't I, as someone that doesn't have any of these things, why can't I be just as grateful as this guy?
I actually have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, then please do. Yeah,
I think when it's kind of a relative form of happiness, you don't realize that it's not that you're not happy. It's just that you don't really realize what true joy can be until something happens in your life where that's revealed. And I don't think you have to go through something like I went through, or something like the poor guy got bit by the shark. I don't think it has to be something that dramatic, but I can tell you this, there comes a point, and I hope everyone experiences this at some point, where you realize what really means something. And the only thing that, it sounds so plain, but it's really so powerful to me, is that just being here, just being alive is all I really need. And the reason I could say that is because everything else is bullshit. It's not real anyway. Wealth and having money, I've had all that before. It comes and goes. And when you start to realize that just being alive, just existing is enough, then what happened to me at least, was I started to feel so incredible waking up every morning. And meditation helped me realize this too. And then I wanted to help other people, because I saw it was kind of like, and I've always been like this my whole life. I saw other people going, oh man, I'm kind of afraid of this. And I'm like, hey, I can help you. And we'd start talking. Yeah. And I kind of explained what I went through. And it also made me realize that this isn't going to be easy, because a lot of people still don't grasp this. They don't understand, the value of it. And they kind of have to be taught that. And so that's the struggle, I guess, that you would say that I have is I want to be able to reach as many people as I can to let them know that if you really want to be happy, it's okay to be afraid You just have to realize that your fears are something that your brain is manufacturing to protect everything. And that you as a mind, as a creative person that understands that you exist, don't have to listen. You don't always have to listen.
That's what meditation tries to give you. It tries to give you this. I feel like it tries to give you this space of realizing that these things coming in, the way this mind, or not the mind, the brain, this lizard brain is just like, yep, be afraid and think about this and think about that and think about that, and it's, you're sitting there in the meditation, and it's always, every time, like I'll start it, and then 10 minutes later, the dude will say something like, okay, come back. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't even meditating for 10 minutes. I was completely just daydreaming about the day, or like thinking about the past. I was not in the moment. And I think fear does that same thing to you, right? It broadsides you. It takes you down into this whole other thing. Like how many things have I been afraid of that have never happened? Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We create false realities all the time, and we try to predict them. And I think as human beings, we feel like we're failing when we can't predict tragedies that are going to happen to us, when in reality, none of that is true. None of that's true. It's all just hypothesizing in our brain. And that's the brain, the meat part of your brain that's trying to prevent everything and be worried about everything and protect you.
Yeah.
And it's not allowing you to actually live your life in the moment where reality exists.
Yeah, it prevents. It's so funny that's how we humans are made. It's like, I get it. For 10,000 years, it was probably pretty important, and we had to kind of know we had to plan for things, and this planning ability gave us the edge in the nature to separate ourselves from the animal kingdom and kind of be the masters. But it's like these days in the society we live in now, where at least in the countries that we live in, where we're really, really safe. So we don't really, I mean, I don't know.
For the most part. I mean, you got parts of the world that are in terrible shape, of course, but I always I have this weird analogy that I throw to people. It's like being afraid of something. It's not unhealthy. It's just that you have to realize what the true emotion behind that fear is. So I always tell them, think of a train. Getting hit by a train probably hurts, and it's probably something you should be avoiding, but it's not really something you should be fearful of, because it's the probability of that happening is astronomical. But if you're walking down a train tunnel, and you're on the tracks and you're stuck and there's no room on the side and a train's coming towards you, you should probably be afraid, because there's a good chance you're going to get hit, So that's where it usually gets a laugh, because people are like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But I think we take little things, like, I'm going to go on a board meeting today, and I'm going to be nervous, and I'm going to start sweating, and I'm going to start stammering. And we're putting all these things in our heads that aren't real. Yeah. And we're making them happen because we're creating the energy that, makes that possibility happen. And you're doomed from the beginning, when all you have to do is just chill. Like even this meeting, honestly, I think, I don't know if you got a message. I'm like, am I going to be on video and audio? And I didn't know. So I was like, oh, well, yeah, I'll be prepared for anything. And 10 years ago, I'd be like, why isn't this guy answering me? I need to know these things. And it's just, it's amazing how much better and more relaxed your life is when you're not afraid of everything.
Yeah, it's funny that you tend to really, it brings you down these routes where it's not productive at all. On the flip side of it, though, it's like, if you're spending all that energy on all this fear, and all, not even just fear, like just all this, basically it feels negative, right? It's never positive stuff. You're not really spending your energy on thinking about what you're going to do, like, and you're going to succeed, or you're going to have a good time in this situation, or I'm just going to have a great conversation with Mr. Fauster. Not putting so much pressure on yourself in these situations obviously allows you just to be yourself and actually to enjoy the situation more. But I just wonder how to
make that happen.
Like I wondered to myself, like how, like you said at the beginning, like as far as meditation goes, I think meditation is the way to do it. How do you meditate?
Well, I have a really cool way of meditating that
Yeah.
it's probably really silly to everybody else. But let me just address one thing you said
Yeah.
before I answer that. And
For
that is
sure.
that, you start with little steps to kind of overcome fear.
Yeah.
So, and I'm the kind of person, believe me, I know, because I'm like, where's the fix? What do I do?
Fix it.
Tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it because, damn it, that kind of thing. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You have to kind of gradually. It's like learning a musical instrument. You're not going to play the violin as soon as you pick one up. You have to learn. You have to practice. You have to ingrain that in your brain. But I don't know. My meditation really it happened at the same time because thank God, a friend of mine suggested meditation right when I was kind of coming out of the fear. And I was getting irritated. I'm like, I don't want to be afraid anymore. And I need to calm down because I was getting upset. And I'm like, it wasn't really, I went through an angry stage, but I wasn't getting angry. I wanted answers. And then meditation actually taught me that you're not always going to get the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And, but anyway, my meditation, all right, here's the weird part.
It's not weird.
Have you ever heard of a band? Have you ever heard of a band called Prodigy?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a song called Narayan. And Narayan is Om Namah Narayana, which is kind of a takeoff of a chant from, I think it's a Taoist chant, to where you get yourself into this meditative state. Well, in the song, they say it 20 times. And it's kind of this chant. When I first heard the song, I was like, what does that mean? That's kind of cool. And it's like just listening to it's soothing. Yeah. And I looked it up, and it's kind of, I think the proper pronunciation is Om Namon Narayana.
Okay.
And what it means is essentially I'm telling the universe that I realize I'm a part of the universe, that I'm not this great individual, but I'm also important, and that I am thankful to the universe for allowing me to allow the universe to experience itself through me, which sounds wild.
That's great.
But when I first learned that, I'm like, really? Is that really what's happening? And I'm always a skeptic, and I can't say, of course, there's no proof of this, but it sounds so beautiful, and I kind of want it to be true. And I think it's on any level you can apply that, and it would actually, it's kind of like most religions even have the same aspects that they're always teaching. It's always the same thing. It's always, positive, be good, not be evil, don't kill, things like that. Yeah. So when I started doing my meditation, I learned at the same time about the law of attraction, which I don't want to get into too much because I suspect it may be true, but I'd be lying if I said I believed it because I don't have the proof. Yeah. But I can tell you that I've seen results. And have you heard of the law of attraction? It's basically
I'm totally into it too. So it is
cool.
I wouldn't mind talking about it either. It's
Oh no, it's great because I still can't go, okay, I know this is real because of this, but I can tell you this. When I started combining meditation with the law of attraction, I figured out this weird formula that works for me. And for me, it's like I go into my meditations now and I meditate every day. Yeah. Every day. I can even meditate before I'm going to sleep if I didn't have an opportunity to do it throughout the day. But I go into them with gratitude. Yeah. And I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for this. And what I do is I try to think of the gratitude for someone else, not myself.
That's okay. See, that's because that's one of the things that kind of got me about the law of attraction. But I keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, yeah, because I was like, okay, I'm grateful, but is this all about me? No, it's about, I'm grateful. I have my son's an incredible kid. My mom is still alive. I have a beautiful wife. I got a really cool dog. Those are just little things, but there are so many little things that you can be grateful for. Even in the eye of the storm, there's still things you could be grateful for. So I thank the universe for that.
My son just came into I'm sorry, Tristan. I'm in a show right now, buddy boy. You got to go down to the pharmacy. I'm sorry, buddy. My son just came in.
That's okay.
He just got from school right now. I didn't lock.
You probably heard me talking about my son. It's like, hey, is there a kid in there?
Yeah, we got headphones on.
But that's what I started to do is, I started to be thankful for, the little things. But then on top of that, I started to realize that, okay, I heard about the law of attraction. So I was like, I'm going to kind of test this the way I think. If this exists, this is probably the way that I could believe that this exists. And so what I did was I started to be thankful for, having other things around me. And then it was I started to imagine and be thankful for myself, which we're not really ever taught to do too much. And then I started to focus on the future things. So I would start to be like, when I started this company, I'm like, thank you, universe, for giving me the energy to do this so that I can reach people and I can start connecting with people. And I really believe firmly now that if you believe you deserve it, I mean, you can't lie to yourself. If you believe that I deserve this, I deserve to have a nice business that gets going, it does well, and I can reach people and help people, I deserve that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Then it happens. And that's the weird part, because I started almost doing little tests and things started happening. Yeah. And I can't explain that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you block yourself if you don't believe you deserve it to begin with. Yeah. Then you're blocking that energy from coming in.
Yeah, it's weird. It's and I think, like I said, we're taught by our, don't be prideful. And I was raised in a really strong family that came from overcoming adversity. So it was piled on top of that. If don't be selfish, don't be greedy, don't be boastful, don't be this and don't be that. And to a certain extent, that's when I also realized that that's some of that's actually not helpful. I wasn't supported in the way I probably could have been, but I don't hold it against them. That's just the way it was. But it's okay to ask and to ask for things. And this is like when I teach sales to people. Yeah. This is like this boom, just eye-opening moment when I say, I always have two things. I don't mean to segue into sales.
It's fine.
But when you have someone who's afraid of asking for the close in a sale, whatever that may be, and if you don't know, the close is at the end of the sale when you wrap everything up and you get the money, whatever. Yeah. But and then people would come to me and they'd say, well, I'm afraid at that point. And I said, well, okay, ask yourself two questions. Number one, have you done everything to be helpful and kind and supportive for this person? And most all the time they say, well, yes. And number two is simple. Do you deserve it? Did you work hard enough? Did you help this person? Did you create a solution for the problem?
Yeah.
And do you feel like you deserved it? Well, if the answer is yes, then go do it. And it's like, it's amazing to me how many people they don't put it together that way. Yeah, and I don't know why. But.
I think it's like you said, it's a deeply ingrained. I had the same thing. It's a deeply ingrained guilt for asking for something. Yep. And why should I feel that guilt, right? I mean, if I really, unless I'm faking it, there's this whole thing. Like, I remember when I first was learning to be a bartender, or I wanted to be a bartender because I was a busser at a restaurant, and I want to make the next level. And my buddy's just like, he's like, you just have to fake it. Like, you just have to tell everyone that you're a bartender. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't, he's like, you got to learn how to make the drinks. Yeah, sure. You got to learn how to make the drinks. You can't be, but like by the
you just said it right there. You have to learn, you have to educate yourself on what you have to do. But when I hear fake it till you make it,
yeah.
What I really think, and I believe that people are telling you is that believe in yourself. It's not that you necessarily have to fake it. You have to get to the point where you believe you can do it.
Yeah, there's
Once
always
you
like
get to
this.
that point.
Yeah,
yeah. You learn what you have to learn. The bartender, you learn the drinks, but then you give yourself permission to be successful. Yeah. And that's where, I got to tell you this. I worked in several startups, and there's this weird culture in America where, I'm not knocking America or anything like that, but especially in the startup community, that these the people who do the startups, they kind of try to educate. And they're usually a lot of kids that they bring in. And they try to tell them, the best way that we're going to be successful is, all you guys are equal. We're going to treat you all equally. And that we're all in this together, which sounds great. But what they're really doing, and I started to see this, is they want everyone doing every job all the time so that they don't have to give anyone more money, and that they can rely on people to plug in, if this person's sick, they can do this. I mean, I guess it makes sense logistically.
Yeah.
But what they were asking, and I saw this happen to so many young kids all the time, is they were asking them to be complacent and happy with being average and being obedient to the company. Yeah. And that's where I think a lot of it comes from, that you talk about that guilt. Yeah. I mean, it's still kind of like that. When I was a kid, my parents were like, you work for a good company and they're going to give you a pension. They're going to do this. And you just work and they'll take care of you.
Yeah.
I think we know that's not true now.
Yeah, yeah, but that's branded into you, and it follows out of school. It's like from being this frontal learning in school to becoming a cog in this machine,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Well, I mean, society is kind of built on that. If everyone were an entrepreneur, we probably wouldn't get a lot done. I mean, there's a balance. There's a balance to everything in the universe, of course. I believe that too. And there's a balance to this. There's people that would feel the compunction to go out and actually start a business on their own and be an entrepreneur. I think that that's right for them. Some people, they really just honestly don't want to work that hard. And it's not that they're lazy. I don't want to blame people. What I do is it's a pain in the ass, especially with, the disease that I have. It makes it really hard some days.
Yeah.
I get tired easily.
Amen.
So I can see where let's say having a child is the most important, beautiful thing that they can do in their life. So they're married, they're going to have a child. They want to be able to raise that child in a situation where they have a lot of time to spend with their family. That's absolutely legit. I mean, and that's just one example. There's endless amounts of reasons why someone doesn't have to be completely fearless and go out and start their own brand and start their own business. Yeah. And it's legit,
Yeah. And you shouldn't feel guilty about that either. Right. If that's, but it's like kind of, then be that guy or be that girl. And if that's you, then you have to stand for that. The brutal honesty is saying that you're not Elon Musk, that you're gonna not be the guy that works 100 hours. And
I don't want to be Elon Musk, man. You ever read that interview where he talks about he thought he was insane when he was a kid? He literally said, "There's something wrong with my brain because I can't stop thinking all the time." And he must have a horrible life, really. And I think he's done a lot of good. Obviously, he's very successful. I don't want to be Elon Musk.
I don't think
that's going to be a nightmare.
He says that too. Yeah, he's like, I don't wish this on anybody. Right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that with him, just to kind of go on a little Elon Musk tangent, is I would really appreciate about that is that he gets people to work for him too, right? And he ends up being he gets a lot of talented people that there's that whole area where it's like there's not just people that are employed and entrepreneurs. He's got teams of fantastically smart engineers working to go to Mars. Like, how do you get people to,
He's a leader. He's an obvious leader, and people, a lot of people can kind of rise to the point where they can take control of their life and do their own business kind of thing. And again, it's not that those are better people. It's not that they're living a better life. It's nothing like that. But out of that select group, there are even a smaller amount of people who are true leaders. Yeah. And I think the true leaders like Elon Musk have to realize that they are a leader. And when you're a leader, you have a huge responsibility because people listen to you. People will expect you to solve problems for them. They'll expect you to look out for them. They'll expect you to have answers. And it's a hard place to be, but if you're a leader, you're a leader. It's kind of something you can't run away from.
Yeah, that's wow. I always end up somehow always land on Elon Musk. I don't know. I love that guy. Like I remember listening to his. I had it as an audiobook. I listened to his biography or biography. He didn't write it himself, and I was just amazed at just at the beginning of SpaceX how they were building the first rockets and having to move them out of the shed, and it took them 2 weeks, and then it was raining and they had to move them back into the shed, and then all this.
Oh, there's all kinds of things. Who builds a rocket without fins on it?
Yeah.
That's when they first came out with the rocket, and I was like, don't they need the little fin things to make it go straight? And my dad was still alive at the time he was talking about it. He's like, it doesn't work that way. Those are for model rockets. It's not the same thing. So, and then I saw the first time that they had one of his spaceships go up and then come down and land. And I was like, that's impossible. There's no way that could happen. And he's doing it, Yeah,
it's very motivating for me. Like whenever I am having a tough day at work or whatever like that, I think about that story and I think to myself okay, so what? Now I'm just complaining because I have to do some paperwork or it's just annoying because that person's not calling me back or whatever, and it just I have to call that person 5 times to just do one thing. And it's really, that's your problem. That's the big problem you got going on today,
First world problems, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's where, that when I talk to people about if they want to do this life stuff, they want to kind of get into an entrepreneurial kind of, what I think is where we start small businesses. This is what I think society meant by starting a small business was not, because now people, I'm going to start a small business, then I'm going to sell to Home Depot, and I'm going to be over here, I'm going to be huge. And it's not, that's not a small business. You're a small business when you're an entrepreneur, and you don't have to have a lot of people working for you. You can do this, you know, relatively on your own. But I think the number one most deciding factor is that you better love what you're doing. Yeah. You better love it, because everything you just described and that I talked about that seems like work, I'm almost practically hyperventilating talking to you, because I'm so excited about talking about it, because I really love my life this much now. Yeah. And it took getting sick to figure this out. That's the crazy part.
Yeah. Yeah, it's but when you burn for something, I think the time flies, you know. How old
is not enough in a day.
How old is your son?
My son's 30.
He's 30.
Yeah.
Cool.
I had him very young. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on.
He has a great life. He's kind of like he's real existential, and we have these, oh boy, I'll tell you what, we have conversations sometimes that if anyone were listening in, they probably think we're insane. But he's definitely my son. You know?
Those are great. I think that's an interesting thing with father. Like I have those kinds, like I can only, like I have like 3 father figures in my life, but my biological father, like when he calls, it's just weird, because there's like this mirror that happens, and because it's just there. You just have like this thing, and my wife says always like, just go in the other room. She's like, just what are you guys talking about? You know,
we do the same. We'll talk about like quantum physics, you know, working on cars, to, you know, how to raise a dog and train a dog, you know, things like that. They don't even sound like conversations, but they work for us because we can follow it. But anyone outside is like, what the hell are you guys talking about? You know? Yeah. But yeah, that's what's great about having kids, I think, is kids, you know, they're basically little clones of you anyway, you and the mother. So
yeah, for sure.
It's like an extension of me, which I think is really cool.
I know people always use it. Like I used to think like, you hear these things of people like, well, I did something good for the world. I brought kids. I'm like, no, it's pretty egotistical to have kids, you know, like bringing, like I just have like a little mini me, and it just basically says everything I do is great, and loves me unconditionally. And
well, that's, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, having a child, obviously anybody can do it, you know, well, not everybody, but,
well, yeah, but it doesn't take much.
It's not too hard, you know, but the responsibility of actually raising a child and actually being a parent, that's where it gets tricky and difficult. And,
see, that brings me full circle. I interrupted you again. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
But that brings me full circle to like what you said at the beginning about how, like I tended to be a helicopter parent at the beginning. When my first son came out, I was super overprotective of him, you know, and it really bothered my wife, because my wife wasn't like that, you know, and I was just like, and I had thought to myself, I built this whole thing around it. Like I have to be the perfect dad, and I got to do all these things to make sure that like he's got a good father in his life, and I'm just going to be like super dad, you know, 120%. And God, by the third one, that was all out the door, right? Like it just like,
well, that's, you know, you're basically describing what my parents did. My parents both loved us all very, very much. They were great people. They're great parents. But I think in a way they did that wrong. You know, they were very helicopter and very protective, to the point where you didn't even get in the helicopter. You know, it's like you stayed home and they went and fought wars for you. They took care of everything. Yeah. And I was, you know, growing up, it felt kind of cool when you're a young kid to know that, I'm protected. My parents going to say, but you don't realize what a privilege that is to have something like that. And then when you get out in the world, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know? So what I did, just to talk about raising kids, I did the exact opposite with my son. We had a lot of talks, but I told him, you're going to make your own decisions, and I'm going to give you the information to hopefully make the right decision, which I thought was great. But he wound up getting in a lot of trouble.
Did he?
And
yeah.
Oh yeah, God, yeah. I mean, I remember sleeping one night. I was knock at the door, and I went to the door, and there's a cop there, and he's like, "We have your son in their car." And I'm like, "No, you don't. He's in his room right here." And I went in the room. Of course, he wasn't in there, and they had arrested him for shoplifting. You know,
yeah.
But he went through. I think when I divorced his mother, that was hard on him too. So,
yeah.
But I was kind of one end of the spectrum. You know, I did the exact opposite of what my parents did, because I thought, I don't want my kid to be afraid. I want him to be tough, and I want him to be able to figure things out and to be brave and go out in the world and make a difference. So if I'm afraid, I'm a result of my parents being super helicopter parents, then I'm going to be the exact opposite. I'm going to have this super kid.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't work that way.
Yeah, there's like some type of balance. Do you know that song from Johnny Cash, A Boy Named Sue?
Yeah. It's a great song.
That's a great song. When I think of that song, I think like at the end, he's just fighting with his dad and graveling in the dirt, and they're pulling a knife on him. He finally got his dad in the thing, and he's just like, "That's why I named you Sue, because I knew I wasn't going to be there for you to give you all these lessons in life. So that name you had to carry that name with you." I mean, there's
great song.
It's
Johnny Cash, Man in Black. That was a great. It's funny because I always thought that. I was going to be like a business person. I was going to be somebody that, was a banker or whatever, and I kind of started to realize, thankfully early on, that I was going to be more the creative type of person. So songwriting, I play the guitar. I have a really hard time now because my hand's numb, but I still try. But I saw that in my son too. He started to do the creative things. And I remember initially I was like, no, you can't do that because you're going to be broke.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going to have any money, and I would never say that to him. But then I realized this is my gift. I've been given this gift from the universe. This is me born again, basically. This is another life that I get to be involved in. And ultimately, I think your kids raise themselves. They really do. You are role models to a certain point where they start to kind of realize that you're full of shit, at certain things.
Yeah.
And then they start to make their own decisions. But I think the only thing you can do to be a good parent, really, truthfully, if somebody asked me, was to just set good examples. That's all. Because you can't tell a kid to do anything. I think that. They'll do it. Yeah. They'll respond if they have to, especially if they're, any kind of repercussions if they don't. But they won't want to unless you allow them to see why it's beneficial. And the only way to do that is through example. Be a good person. Don't get in arguments. Don't fist fight when you're out. Things like that. They see and they learn from that.
Don't fist fight in the. Yeah, my grandpa.
No fighting in the grocery store. I don't know.
I remember. I'll never forget that. I remember the story that my whole family would always tell about my grandpa, like how he would there was this one guy and they were all out there and he just started beating everybody up, and you have he has this authoritative. Like he's just this old school, authoritative, like biker kind of guy, and I remember, he would make me work all day for my $15 and then he'd make me buy lunch. And I'd sit there, and my mom would just be like, "Oh, how could you do that to this poor little boy?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, how could you do that to me?" And he's just, Jesus Christ, you guys are all pussies, That's it just, there's this old school mentality is definitely I think we need more of that, to be honest. Like, I feel like a little bit, you got to have more of these hard asses because.
I have no problem being real. I was always with my son Ethan. I would never candy coat things. Now he'd ask me things and I wouldn't tell him something, even when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All right, I'm laying it on you. Here we go.
Well, yeah, I would not hide the truth from him, and I would always do it kind of a read the room type of situation to a 7-year-old. You're not going to tell him about how probably when you're dead, nothing happens and you're just lying on the ground, dissolving, things like that. You're not going to have that conversation.
Exactly.
But I allowed him to have the room to make those decisions and to feel comfortable questioning things like that on his own.
Yeah.
And that's where, he went through so much, I think a challenge when he was a kid. And I went through hell too, because people around me, I was like, why don't you kick his ass? Why don't you do that? And I'm like, I'm never going to touch my son. I'm not going to do that. But I almost didn't want to, and I didn't want to be the one that came up and said, I told you so. See what you did? You're a dumbass. You did that. And I never wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So it was this balance between, what do I do? How do I support him? And how do I not be an asshole? And eventually I realized that it's just me. It's just showing him good examples. And that's just what kids do. Kids do dumb shit. Yeah, and when he got older, now he owns his own garage. He builds, like race cars or something. I don't even understand what he does, but he's a great mechanic and really well-adjusted, good kid.
Yeah. There's a balance for sure. But I think doing the example thing, it makes sense when you say it, but it's tricky. It's this whole self-reflection process that happens when I find myself I have a tendency to fly off the handle, right? And it just ruins them. If I go out there and I just fly off the handle and do this whole Italian rah, it's like,
I'm from New Jersey. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, we always talk with our hands against son of a bitch. It's you could do that, but that's where I learned. you know, I guess it's maybe just life experience. It's not that I'm pulling rank on you or anything, but just being older, you kind of realize what doesn't work. And the only way to realize that is to screw up and do it. And then you realize what does work. And I think now some of the people that I idolized when I was a teenager, like you were talking about, like, you know, kind of the badasses. And this guy's not afraid of anything. He'll go, people get in a fight, he's going to go up there and, you know, and I was like, okay, that's what a man does, you know? And I started to realize later, much later in life, that those are the people who are afraid the most. Those are the people who are scared. And the only way out of it's kind of like the cornered dog syndrome. They just want to fight. They want to be tough. They have to bark. They have to yell things. And to me, I started to see that as not a failure, because I don't think any emotion that you genuinely perceive is a failure ever. They're all valid. No. But you have to realize that it's not helpful, and you're not helping other people. That was a big thing for me too, is like realizing how good it makes you feel to help other people makes you want to be a better person. And it's not that I'm some better person, but I don't really have a tendency to get angry anymore. Whereas when I was a teenager, I thought that's what you did.
Yeah. Yeah, I get this whole getting angry thing, like that again, meditation helps with that. Just gives me that like half a second to like not do it, you know, to just not, I don't know, breathe in, breathe out kind of thing for a second.
Well, I mean, like we're talking like in the moment right now. We're actually consciously, you and I right now are consciously aware of being alive in this moment right now. We're having this conversation about this. It's hard to do that all the time.
It is. It really is, especially when you just get triggered by something. It's like, you know, and
well, that's where you start to realize, my only advice, if I could give any to you, would be that, you know, you realize that that's your monkey brain. That's your stupid brain trying to react, because your brain's a chicken shit. It's afraid of everything, and it's going to try to protect you. And if it knows that it could get you to bark and get upset to prevent something potentially bad from happening that is probably never going to happen, that it can make you do that. It does that through chemicals and, you know, everything that it excretes into the bloodstream, and you get that kind of a reaction. It's controlling you to a certain extent, but you can stop that. You can stop that by being in the moment. And that's what it just takes time to realize when that spike hits, realize that it's hitting.
Yeah.
And if you can stay in the moment, you can conquer it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I had this thing where, what is it like, what are we doing right now? What's the, why am I, you know, like, what's the whole point? Like, why do I take off? I take off early at work. I want to spend time with the kids. I'm that kind of dad, actually. Like, I'm more of the guy that I love to do that. But it's like, I go pick him up and I'm like, okay, now we're, you know, and it's like, what? Yeah. So you spend the whole time with the kids, is what, you spend 4 hours, it's supposed to be like a nice afternoon, and all you're doing is just being stressed out all the time. It's like, then you might as well just go to work and just stay out of their life. You know?
Yeah. And I think that's why people do that. They retreat to work where they can, you know, be on the grind all the time.
Yeah.
You reminded me of, we went to, we took a family trip to Disneyland when I was a kid. And I was like 11, I think, when we went to Disneyland. And I was so excited because I loved people at that age. That kind of got broken out of me in my teenage years, and later, and then I eventually rediscovered that. But I was excited. I'm like, our family's going to Disneyland. It's not that I vocalized these things, but that's what I felt.
Yeah. And you were 11 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But my parents were fighting at the time. I don't know what about.
Yeah.
So I remember still vividly being in the hotel room. We're getting ready to go to freaking Disneyland, and they're fighting and they're arguing. I'm like, and that was the first time I realized that, wow, my parents don't have it all together. And I didn't want to be like that, you know? I wanted to be like you talk about what do you do when you spend time with your kids? Well, you spend time with your kids, you do anything. You play a video game. You could just sit, you know, get fish. You could sit there and do nothing. You'd eat pizza.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah, we watched it. Sorry, I keep it.
No, it's okay.
We just watched a movie, I think, last weekend. It was like called Yes Day. And these parents decided, because like it was I don't know that,
I didn't understand that.
I don't know the actress's name, but she's like one of these tough women, and the dude They were just fighting like their whole life. Once they have kids, they turn into these helicopter parents, and they're just fighting everything. Like, no, because everything before was like when they were together before they had kids, it was like, yes, let's do this, let's do this, let's go mountain climbing, blah blah blah. Yeah. And then the kids came, and it was like, you just have to say no because kids will literally kill themselves, right? They're gonna walk out in the middle of the street, so you have to be like, no, don't do that, no, don't do that. And so they fast forwarded like 12 years later, and they figured out that they're going to do this thing called Yes Day. And so my wife and I, after watching that movie, we watched it with the kids. And of course, my 8-year-old was like,
can we do that?
Are we doing that? Like, oh, shit. But you can't there was a rule, like you can't do anything in the future. Like you can't like make me say yes for the next, thing.
Yeah.
And
like the genie with the 3 wishes. You can't wish for more wishes.
Yeah, exactly. You can't wish for more yes day every day or whatever, because I have to say yes. I think that was about it. And you can't put yourself in harm or anything like that, right? Like you can't say like, I want to jump off a cliff today. Like, it's kind of a sad thing to say, but anyway.
No, I mean, well, what you're talking about is like, that's the kind of fears that are valid, but they're not,
yeah,
there's not really a word for it though, is there? I mean, we talk about being cautious and then being courageous, and being courageous and being fearless is actually the same thing, because when you're courageous, you're able to work right through your fears, but it's not the same thing as being, and I wish we had a much better word for this in the English language, at least, to where, kind of the train. I'm not afraid of being hit by a train, but I'm not stupid. I'm not going to step in front of the train because that'll hurt.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm smart enough to be cautious and to, but I don't think we have a strong enough word, fear. You say fear, people are like, oh yeah, I understand fear. Well, yeah. But we don't really understand fear, because fear doesn't exist. Fear is something our brain is lying to us about, but we need to be cautious. And the word cautious just isn't strong enough.
No, it's not true. It's not strong enough. It's true. I think that the thing that I was listening to in this stoicism thing was like, and that's kind of this law of attraction thing. Like when I first got into law of attraction, we would do it with things with bags with my wife. Like she wanted a nice bag, like a nice purse or something. And so we would just be like, okay, I deserve the purse. I'm going to get the purse. The purse is mine. I'm going to visualize myself walking with this purse on my shoulder and do this whole thing and go through the motions. And then eventually, like literally, I think her mom actually went shopping and bought her like a purse that was just so identically close with the colors.
Isn't it weird?
It was really weird. And like Franzi and I just be like, was that real? Like,
well,
what is
that's
that?
where, you can't like visualize, okay, I want a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Because I think I really deserve a Ferrari. I'm going to go outside and the keys are going to drop out of a cloud and there's my Ferrari.
Yeah.
That doesn't work either. You really have to genuinely believe that you deserve it. And I've thought about things, especially with the business now, because I'm so behind this and I so want this to work and I want to reach so many people, that it's kind of constantly consuming my thoughts all the time. I just, in a good way, I want this to succeed.
Yeah.
But I have to realize that it's, like we said about half an hour ago when we were talking about little steps. You have to take small steps towards achieving, and you have to be thankful and grateful for those steps. I'm not thankful for, or I'm not grateful because I don't have a Ferrari. I would never own a Ferrari anyway, but something like that. But I am thankful for little steps that are getting me towards a place where I can eventually hope to be and aspire to be the kind of person that really helps people understand fear and overcome the fear and anxiety of actually succeeding in life, because that's what it comes down to. I think most of us are taught and conditioned to accept a certain level of happiness. Yeah. And you don't have to do that. If you want more responsibly, then you can do it. You take on the role again of the Elon Musk at a certain point. Not that I'm making any kind of comparison at all, but when you're a leader, you have to recognize that you're a leader. And now people are going to listen to you. And if people listen to you and they do what you do, you better do it right.
Yeah, but it could be a positive type of stress. Like it seems maybe stressful to someone doesn't want to be in leadership role. And I found myself in a similar role. My wife took over the pharmacy from her father. And then it was all of a sudden it's like me and her are kind of like the bosses, and it just seemed like no, imposter syndrome a little bit, right? Like,
Yeah, sure.
you're
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, I'm not. Why? What am I doing here? What am I don't deserve to be this
I think
guy.
any good person feels that all the time.
So it's a good sign, right? That you
Yeah.
feel like that instead of just being like, yeah, I'm the boss. Woo-hoo. I tell you what to do. That's not a good thing, right? But
No.
the balance between this the law of attraction and reality of, there's two things I want to talk about, like, because there's this one thing is like, if you put it out there, you put the energy out there, and you're not, the Ferrari might not show up at the door, but the energies that you're putting out there that you want to help people with fear, and you're creating a business, so you're providing a service that people would want to pay for, right? And so the opportunity comes across, whether what you do with that money, whether you buy a Ferrari or not, it doesn't really matter. It's that you're creating more value.
And what are you doing subconsciously? You're guiding your life in a positive way. I mean, it's like if I give you a treasure map, it's a piece of paper, but there's treasure at the end of the map. If you follow the map and you do the little steps, you're going to get that treasure.
Yeah, and the little steps is a good thing too. That's actually another thing. Like I did this with the cold showers. Do you know of Wim Hof?
No.
He's like this ice. He calls himself the Iceman, and he does stuff. He's all over the States too. I think he's from Denmark. No, or
something.
He's somewhere around here in the northern Europe area. But he has a very funny accent when he speaks in English. It's very cute. But he does this whole thing with the cold showers, where like you get up in the morning, you take a cold shower, and it's just like, it's basically controlling it's basically like controlling your breathing. Obviously, you got to breathe through it. And it's just the mental blockage, kind of like the fire walking and stuff like that. But it's easy. Anybody can do it. And it starts off the same way. It's like do 5 seconds and then turn it up, and then do 10 seconds. And it's just these steps. And all of a sudden you're taking cold showers for a minute and a half.
Well, it's really weird you say that, because I don't take cold showers, but I have to take kind of lukewarm showers because the heat gets the nerves going in my body. And I've fallen in the shower a bunch of times because it almost knocks me out. So I have to take colder showers, but that's interesting. That's a great theory too, because it's kind of like pain. When you have the chronic pain, like I said, when it first happened, I'm like, this sucks. What do I do? Now it's like I'm in pain sitting here right now.
Yeah.
But it's manageable, and I have accepted that if I want to keep living, if I want to stay here, that I got to deal with this. Yeah. It's not going to go away. And I think that's where I say I'm lucky. I'm really, really thankful and grateful and lucky that this happened to me, because it made me realize how great being alive really is.
Yeah, that's something that's it's hard. It's hard to keep. And for you, it's just like, it's an everyday thing, right? You wake up, you're like, I'm good to go. And I wish not that I wish, but I think to find that, like, it takes a constant effort. And I get up in the morning an hour and a half before everyone else, and I do like my thing. And there's days where I'm on it and I'll find that, and there's other days where, like I said, it just flies through. Like I'm not even there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't be perfect. Nobody's dead on all the time, sure.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just it's almost like it's a respect for life, respect for yourself, respect for this gift that we have of life.
Yeah,
being satisfied with just, like, why do I have to have so many things to be happy? Why can't I woke up today?
Because people want to convince you that you got to buy their shit.
That's why. Yeah. It's just like this consuming lifestyle. It doesn't. But the truth is if my level of happiness is based on that my eyes are open today,
it's a great level. Yeah,
that's a good place to start.
It's all up from there, right? It's all positive. But that's really the truth. I mean, I thought I literally didn't know if I was going to be dead in a week when I got diagnosed, because I didn't know enough about it yet. And I think I asked those questions when I was in the doctor's office, but it's kind of like in the movies when, somebody gets bad news and they kind of they're talking like this and you can't hear, and that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And so when I got home, I'm like, fuck, I mean, am I going to die? I actually believe that there was a very strong possibility that in the next couple of weeks I was going to be dead.
Like, is this it? Is this it? You need to ask yourself that. That's just so sobering.
It is. You hit it. That's the perfect word right there, is sobering. It kind of breaks you out of your funk. And I think for me, it's really the first time I felt like I'm not going to say like woke culture or anything like that, but I felt like I woke up. I did. I felt like I was kind of like, I realized now it's like, hey, look around you, dummy. Look what you have.
Yeah.
Look at all the positive things you have and all the things you think you need to chase. I mean, I've had a lot of them before. They don't mean anything. There's not a lot of value to them.
Yeah,
I had a house with 6-car garages and cars everywhere. It's like it's just more shit to take care of.
It's just more shit to take care of. That's totally true. You're talking to the right guy. I got the same thing sometimes. I go into my garage. I'm like, how much shit have I accumulated over my life, and how much of it have I touched in the last 2 years? It's time to throw it away. But then on the other side of the door, there's an Amazon package waiting. It's like it's just coming in and going out, and I'm just the guy. That's just like my job, and
I'll tell you what, if you want to make money nowadays, open up a cardboard plant where you make boxes. That's where all the money is.
Yeah, think about that.
We're sipping so much crap, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with rewarding yourself. It's kind of like you can give yourself things that really genuinely make you feel happy, but I think it's really good to be aware that it's a temporary kind of high. It's kind of like,
be aware of it.
It's gonna fade. This is not gonna. It's not happiness. Yeah. It's you're feeling. I don't even know the right word to say now, but
it's kind of an adrenaline push sometimes. Like when I buy something that's like a little bit expensive, maybe a little bit too expensive. It's like, it's kind of a little bit of adrenaline. I don't know what that is though. It's weird. It's like this.
Well, I don't know. I think it's primal. I think it comes down to almost like I think it was Freud that said one of the largest driving factors in a human being is sex. It's always because what we live for, according to him, was to conquer, take things, and fuck. Basically, it's like it's all about.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
But I think that that kind of sensation that you get when you buy something, it feels a little like you probably shouldn't be doing this, but it's actually okay, and you get that kind of sense of accomplishment kind of thing, and that's where I'm really careful about that nowadays, because I realize that that's good. It's good to have that, but that's not joy. Yeah. That's not true joy. That's not true happiness. True happiness is being able to, in my opinion, I can only speak for myself now, but that's what I try to exemplify for people, is that true happiness is understanding that being here, being alive, going through the years from birth to death is the most incredible thing in the universe. And it's a gift, and I've been given that. So everything that I experience, even this disease, it's all part of this kick-ass ride.
Yeah. Yeah, that's putting it really, I
Sorry, we got real heavy there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I almost want to just like end the conversation on that because it's so strong. But there was this one little thing that I still had in my mind, and it was about the basically like when I'm sitting down and I'm meditating about whatever, like if I listen to like a guided meditation, and the guy's talking about this idea that the Stoics used to have about negative visualization, which totally surprised me. I was like, wait a minute, negative visualization. I don't want to go there, because I'm all about this positive visualization. I want to talk. I don't want to put any negative kind of thoughts. I want to just do the positive thing. But he made an interesting point that, and I just tried it, and it's not like you can dwell on these things, right? I just tried it. I was like, okay, I'm going to visualize, basically like the things that are important to me have to be gone, right? So like, then you find out what's important. So obviously my wife and my kids, that's like the easiest, fastest thing to think about. Yeah. I was like, okay, wait, no, I'm going to listen. I'm going to do what he says. I'm going to meditate on them not being there. And it was really creepy. It was eerie, and it felt weird to even like let that kind of internally go through my emotional system, See,
that's scary for me, because it's kind of like, I think when you're thinking it, we're almost to the point where we're proving in the quantum realm that information
is going out there. Like
and it absolutely builds things and makes things real.
Yeah.
And I try not to. That's where it's like, you son of a bitch, you did me wrong. I hope you die. I hope you drive your car off a cliff. And, when you do that, and I'm not saying you did the same thing, but when you think of things in the negative aspect, I think all it is negative energy. And I think it's kind of like, if you look in nature, there's no right and wrong. There's just existence. A lion eats something, not because he's a dick. He's eating something because he's hungry.
Yeah,
so he's not intentionally murdering something. Yeah. The universe is kind of like that too. I see it to where the universe just understands energy. And I really believe now, because like I said, I've almost got, I have proof that things that I've connected and felt grateful and felt like I deserved, I've gotten.
Yeah.
So I have to believe it. But I think the universe doesn't discriminate. So if you're thinking bad shit, it's going to make bad shit happen.
For sure. Yeah. And the interesting thing was, though, I did this, and then I went out and my kids were waking up. And what do you think is the first thing I did, though? Like, I totally hugged them. Like, I hadn't hugged them in a while. Like, I had like that. I hugged them, and I was like, and they're kind of like, "Hey, Dad, everything cool?" I'm like, "Yeah." And my wife was like, "What's up with you? Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Well,
you meditated, didn't you, Dad?"
Yeah, I told my wife that. She's like, "Oh, Jesus, what are you talking?" Because we had this whole thing with like the positive. She's like, "Don't put that on me, you know. Like, I'm cool. Like, I don't need any of your negative visualization over here, you know." But
who knows if that, I mean, for you, it was a positive thing. It actually worked out to where it made you realize, yeah.
And it's not like you can do it. Yeah, exactly. It's not like I can sit there and do it all day. But it just was.
Truthfully, I would say in your case, though, you were being grateful. It wasn't even a negative thing. You were grateful that you could see why those things were so important to you. So that's a good thing. It's a positive thing.
That's what's so interesting. Like, because I've always tried to tell myself to be grateful. And I tell it, and I always feel like almost like it's like I'm lying to myself a little bit. It's not a bad thing, but it's more like just like, yeah.
It's hard to actually feel that.
It's hard to feel it. And this visualization made it hit home. But it's also, and it's only about the important things, right? Like, if you could have told me that like the nice car and the driveway is gone and stuff, you don't give a shit about that. Like, who cares? Like, I'm not going to go out to my car afterwards and like give it a big hug, you know?
Have you ever seen the movie The Box?
I don't know.
It's this like cheesy sci-fi film that was actually based on a Richard Matheson wrote a screenplay for The Twilight Zone. Oh. So they took that and they made it into this movie. It's got James Marsden, I think his name is, and can't remember who else is in it. Nicole Kidman, maybe. Anyway, but
she's a good one.
It's about how this guy comes with a box and he comes to your door and there's a button in the box. And he says, you press the button, you'll get $1 million right now. And then everyone's like, well, what happens when you press the button? He's like, well, you kill someone.
Just somebody, but you don't know who they are.
Exactly. It's actually a great movie. I love that movie. I actually own it because I thought it was that cool.
That's interesting.
But that's where I think about sometimes it's like, things have repercussions. And I think if you, and in your case, again, I don't want to say that you did anything negative.
Sure, not. I got to make sure that they're all still doing good.
It showed you gratitude. No, you went into the right way. You actually had the courage to explore that emotion, which made you a better person, I think, in the outcome. So that you should be patted on the back for that, really. But I think if you try to do like the things where you're evil and vindictive, because I see that in people. I see that, unfortunately, in certain people are just, you ever met a person that's like, everything is not their fault?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody else did it to him. Well, this happened. That's why this happened. And this asshole over there, that's what.
Yeah.
That doesn't help you. That energy doesn't help you. You just keep like churning and churning and churning, and eventually become this really bitter, almost, I hate to say it, but a useless kind of person for the human race, because you're just,
it's just a waste of
oxygen. You're very negative. And
yeah,
that's where being positive kind of creates positivity. It really does. And it's almost cliche at this point, but it's cliche for a reason, because it works.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's just always the thing. I remember watching this movie with Brad Pitt and George Clooney, where Brad Pitt played this like totally dumb guy. They were all in Washington State, somewhere like that. It was like Burn After Reading, I think it was called.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever check that one out?
He's like the guy that works at the gym.
Yeah, he was always just like played like this airhead guy. It was hilarious. And George Clooney was like he created some sex machine in his cellar, and that was like his thing. But he was working, and the whole thing was like there's these spooks everywhere. He was like afraid that there's these spooks, you know. And he was like this. But I remember like there was this other part of him that was like super. He was always just like always positive, but it wasn't really positive. It was like his own little lie to himself to push him through all these things that he was doing, you know?
Yeah.
And so a
lot of us do that too. It's like we're wearing a costume.
Yeah.
So if we're in the room full of people that are positive, then we put on our positive costume. We're like, oh hell yeah, positive, you know?
Yeah.
You don't really believe it. You can't act positive. You have to want to be positive. You know, there's a huge difference.
And there's an energy, right? There's an energy of somebody when you're around someone that is like, you know, or just in this conversation, I could just feel it from you that you embody it. It's not that something that you're putting on as a facade. It's an embodiment of your being. It's what you.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment. Really, thank you. And I get the same from you too. It's like you're aware and you understand. And I like the fact that you're vulnerable. You're actually able to talk about things that you're not sure about, or things that you do that might not be the right thing. And I think that's a great place to start for everyone.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
I don't know everything. I no offense, but I doubt you know everything. I don't think there's any one person that knows everything. We all have to help each other. That's why we're here. That's the big thing. People don't realize you're living in the party right now. You're living in the greatest of the great is happening right now because you're here.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's like fire trucks and everything going crazy. It's just the simple fact that you get to be grateful that I can talk, that I can see you, that I'm here, that I can feel the things I'm feeling right now. I'm talking to someone across the entire planet right now. That's so cool.
Yeah.
All this shit that just sounds like so mundane, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's actually, this is life. This is you living. This is the purpose. Everyone wants a purpose. This is it.
Yeah, be part of it. Be part of the show, and don't just be on the sidelines. For sure, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think on that we'll just. What do you say, Eric? You want to say goodbye? Eric's
we probably talked for. He's like, I want to go.
No, I'm
for 3 hours.
I'm sucking up all this life advice.
He's 20 years old. Like when we have these good conversations like this, it's just like he just sits there. He's like, oh man, that's great. That's great.
That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. And I feel, again, I'm really thankful that you gave me an opportunity here too, because I know that simply by talking to you, you're helping me reach more people. And I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully, that's this one part of the it's kind of interesting to do these shows. And then I'm more in it just for having that conversation with you and just sharing with you. Cause that's what it's all about for me. I see that on YouTube and stuff, and there's like 5 people watch it, whatever. I don't let that bother me because there's live stuff going on and there's audio stuff happening. The people that listen, it's for that 1 or the 2 or the 3 or the 4 or the 5 people. That's what it's for me. Because if any of those people listen to that and get something out of what we talk about and it helps them in their life, then like you said, it's just helping them. And
well, it's exponential too. When you start to realize that you don't have, like we talked about, you don't have to win everything in one day. You take these little steps. These are little steps. And as long as you keep forward, you keep going forward, and you just believe in yourself, realistically, and be happy and grateful with what you're getting and with the speed at which you're getting it and which you're receiving it. So you're not like jealous that someone else got this and I didn't have that, because that's that other person that complains about everything all the time.
Yeah.
You enjoy the ride, you enjoy the life little by little. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you stick with it, it's going to happen. And you're going to create a better life, not just for yourself, but for other people. That's what makes me feel good.
Yeah, like I really appreciate you sharing with us, with my viewers, my 5 viewers, and just with the world. Really, like I said, that's I got a lot of respect.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
You want to let's just say goodbye offline in a second, so I don't want you to hang up right away, huh?
Okay.
So, all right, take it easy.
Bye-bye. You too.